Welcome everybody to the Degens IDP Blitz. I'm Matt Monty. Today I am joined with another fellow football guy, and he's got some other feathers in his cap too. And just so you know ahead of time, I spelled his last name wrong. So if you can't find him, that is 100% my fault, not his fault. Ryan, introduce yourself, man. Say it, spell it, however you got to do it. Welcome to the Blitz. I am so sorry that I have set you up like this to start our show.
I promise you, when you have a last name like mine, I'm Ryan Weiss. I write with Football Guys and Club Fantasy FFL. When you have a last name like mine, you hear it pronounced 50 different ways. You hear it spelled every way under the sun. My ego checked out on my last name a long time ago. I appreciate the invite. I don't care what you put under my name. There is an extra E for those who are watching right now. But Ryan Weiss, Football Guys, Club Fantasy FFL, happy to be here.
And that's the type of guy that you are, Mr. Weiss. You are just a professional. You are a consummate pros pro when it comes to just the handling of the podcast nonsense. As a rookie, my 10th show, I still can't get it right, man. Hey, but this is an exciting show.
I fumble intros to this day, Matt. Let me make you feel better. To this day, I've done more podcasts than I can count. I fumble intros so bad. My podcast friends make fun of me for it. I don't know what it is about an intro. Don't hold it against yourself. Rookie or not, you're doing great. So,
hey, I appreciate that. Well, today we got an exciting show, so hopefully the excitement can just carry this non-professionalism here. It was the trade deadline. There was a lot of stuff going on this week. Typically, when we get trade deadlines in the NFL, it's not sexy. It's not that exciting. You get one or two moves. A lot of times it breaks like 2 or 3 days beforehand. So the actual deadline day itself feels like a bit of a softer landing than you would expect. This week, today specifically, we're recording this on Tuesday night, was a fantastic finish to the trade deadline. And specifically in the IDP world, I think there was a couple of offensive moves, but I really feel like the big needle movers were on the defensive end. We're going to talk a little bit about today. We're going to start with injuries, though, just like we do with every show. The good news to start, there wasn't as many debilitating injuries as it feels like there have been with IDP over the past 4 to 5 weeks. This week, we got a couple of them that are notable. Linebacker Ernest Jones from the Seattle Seahawks and edge rusher Mykel Williams from the San Francisco 49ers. Both of them are maybe Ernest Jones more so than Mykel Williams. Being a regular starter in most IDP lineups, that is a little bit of a rough go. Do you see from these two, do you feel like there's anything we need to really go over as far as backup players in this spot? Do you see any needle movers on that end?
No, I think that's the issue we're running into. Mykel Williams, obviously high draft capital for Mykel Williams, but he's not doing a lot for San Francisco right now, not seeing the field a ton. So I doubt he's rostered in most fantasy leagues. I think he's outside of the top like 100 defensive linemen. Yeah. Ernest Jones, huge loss for Seattle, pretty big loss for fantasy managers. He's put up really good tackle numbers through 8 games, 65 tackles already. But more importantly, certainly for most leagues, depending on your scoring, he's been very active in coverage. And so losing that, you're not just going to be able to find a plug and play that you're going to be able to put in and replace Ernest Jones. Hopefully you've been building kind of a stable of linebackers to prepare for this moment. But when you look specifically at the Seattle linebackers who are going to fill in behind him, you're not like jumping to grab. I'll be honest, like
right.
I dipped my toe in IDP. I don't know who Chaz Surratt is. So like, I don't know who this guy is. You could see like Drake Thomas, who's seeing the field a little bit more, pick up some tackle numbers because Jones is just so good, but it's not something where I'm rushing to grab direct backups at all.
Yep, absolutely. Drake Thomas, if he's still available in your league at this point, he needs to be scooped up, but I'm kind of with you. Drake Thomas seems to be the first person that comes to mind as far as maybe a bump in some of the statistics, but I'm with you. I mean, I think as far as you're scraping the bottom of the barrel with both of these backups here because Seattle isn't exactly the most deep right now at linebacker. And then like you just mentioned, it's not like Mykel Williams is really getting a lot on the field. So the people that are really getting the points there in San Francisco off the edge are most likely already gone. But that's kind of a good thing that's really the only thing we're talking about with injuries this week because we are talking big moves, man. Big needle-moving trades. I have got my Colts gear on because my Bengals are just disappointing me in every which way. So I have just fully jumped on the bandwagon here because this was probably the biggest day in Indianapolis Colts football history. Not a joke. Actually, it is very much a joke. Daniel Jones has revitalized this entire franchise. And it 100% starts with him because the core group of these players in Indianapolis have been together for the better part of 2 to 3 years. The same group of core big movers there. right now we are seeing a resurgence in the Colts trying to win now. It feels as though they're finally past Band-Aid status of just trying to get somebody out there that can move an offense. And now they're trying to build a team around this infrastructure. Big moves. We're going to start with Sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, my Lord. One, if everybody knew the Jets were going to blow it up, I believe that there probably would have been 31 teams on the phone for Sauce Gardner. I would find it hard to imagine that the Colts just had some sort of inside beat, and they may have outbid other people. 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. What do you think about that? How do you see him fitting into that Colts defense?
For the defense as a whole, I love every bit of this. And what's nice about corner is he doesn't have to go and learn a new scheme. He's either in a cover 3 zone, a cover 2 zone, or he's playing man defense. Like, he doesn't have a lot to worry about when it comes to learning there. But overall, you've kind of hit it on the head. The Colts have been building this thing from the ground up. You look at a front 4 that just is excellent at every single position. They add Jermaine Pratt, who's not as great as he used to be, but you have Zaire Franklin, and now you're actually adding to the secondary. Kenny Moore was always good there. Nick Cross has been a tackle machine, but you get Sauce, who can actually play with some of these wide receiver ones. It's game-changing. From fantasy perspective, Sauce is unfortunately one of those unicorn corners where nobody will target him. So he's probably not rostered in fantasy right now. I think when I looked, he's like the DB 77 because nobody throws his way. He doesn't get the pass breakups. He doesn't get the tackles. That's not going to change in Indianapolis. But what I think he does is he makes everybody around him better because now you can run a little bit more man coverage. You can throw a few more blitzes in there. We're going to see sack numbers rising for all of this front 7, I would guess.
Absolutely. And the best compliment you can pay any corner in the NFL is not throwing them the ball. That is the 100%. Ultimate sign of respect from the opposite team. You are too good. We are not even going to chance it by putting it your way, but I'm with you. He's not rosterable. Corners are barely rosterable on a good day, and the great corners are the ones that you just simply cannot. The name is great. It's so cool. I'm sure everybody, and as far as an Indianapolis Colts fan, you're pumped to have Sauce Gardner, but as an IDP fan, it's kind of like, but that's why we started there. We got to work our way up here. It's
well,
like
and when you have
building.
When you have the running game that the Colts have, having a dominant defense is the perfect complement. And this is a team, like you said, 2 weeks ago, obviously Daniel Jones, not the greatest week last week, but 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this being the best offense in the NFL. One bad week doesn't change that. And now they're just continuing to get better on the other side of the ball.
Yep. And one more thing on the Colts before we move on. Everybody remembers the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. A lot of the talk up to that Super Bowl was obviously the offensive line for the Bengals, but a big point of that was Lou Anarumo's defense. And Lou took a hodgepodge of talent in Cincinnati, and it wasn't great. It wasn't elite, but he made it a Super Bowl caliber defense. And I don't believe it was the defense's fault that game was lost. Lou gets fired. He's the fall guy in Cincinnati last year. He comes to Indianapolis, and immediately, I would argue, probably has the best defense he's ever had in his career. And he is clearly effective in managing that defense. So I would 100% believe that the Colts are in a real legitimate Super Bowl window here. I think that their defense, it's like what you said, the best compliment to Jonathan Taylor is a great defense. And ultimately, the 2 best friends of a quarterback are a good defense and a running game. So you're going to support Daniel Jones, who did revert back to Daniel Jones of old. But I don't see that being a regular occurrence. I think the momentum is good. Carly Ursay's got it going on. She's on the sideline with the headset, and she's in the front office making moves, man. What more do you want? You go from Ursay, who everybody hated, to Ursay that now everybody loves. It's amazing what changes in a few short months. But now, just a little bit better of a move here. Dre'Mont Jones, edge rusher from the Titans formerly, is now on the Baltimore Ravens, a Ravens defense that is weirdly leaky. I guess I don't want to say bad because they do have some players back there. They've got some dudes, but they are really allowing a lot of yards, a lot of points. Lamar being hurt didn't help the vibe in the building. I'm sure maybe they're quitting a little bit earlier, but now you get Roquan Smith back. You get Lamar Jackson back, and now you add an edge rusher who is on a current 4-game sack streak to a defensive lineup that already has fears just because Harbaugh is coaching them. Dre'Mont Jones. Is this somebody that you're looking to target? Because he was a waiver darling I had this week, so I do believe he's going to be available in most leagues.
Well, certainly, and now, unfortunately, he was a waiver darling when he was with Tennessee, but now there's a spotlight on him. So,
Yeah.
so everyone's going after him now. Your fab competition just got a lot stiffer. I call this just a huge win-win for Baltimore and Jones. Maybe not necessarily for Tennessee. They're not selling out to the extent that the Jets are, but they're not a very good team. They have a lot more holes than edge rusher. But Baltimore doesn't. As you said, it's so weird because Baltimore right now, for those who still play team defense, they're one of the worst team defenses in fantasy football. They've done nothing. 11 sacks, tied for the league worst in sacks right now. And that's what Draymond Jones is going to come in and help. Halfway through the season, he's sitting at, I think, 4.5 sacks right now. It's just such a win for what they're looking to do there. But it also lets them start to get Kyle Hamilton back out of the box and back at the safety position, so they're not so bad in the back, the defensive backfield. It does a lot of things for this team in general. The talent is there, as you put it. They just really need to get it together, and part of that is also going to be having a non-injured, fully functional Lamar Jackson keeping the offense on schedule.
Absolutely. And I love the spotlight analogy there because you're right. He would have been a waiver darling in Tennessee. Now he is going to be a must-add player. I believe he's a must-add player because you just don't know. They clearly acquired him because there's a deficiency there. I don't think off the top of my head I could name a Baltimore Ravens edge rusher that I trust currently. I liked Dre'Mont Jones. I picked him up a couple of leagues. He's been productive, but it's been, like you just said, he's only got 4.5 on the season. Well, they've all come in the last 4 weeks.
Oh,
that makes me nervous with edge rushers specifically because I like tackle floors. I know the theme of this show might as well be consistency. That's basically all I talk about every single week. But, I mean, it's legitimate. I think that's part of the reason why edge rushers in certain scenarios can almost lose you more than they can win. Jones going here is obviously going to get the majority of the offensive line's attention when he is going to be schemed against in Baltimore because he is obviously the most notable name currently that's going to rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
That being said, I still think it's worth a pickup and start. I think if you do get the fab lottery and you get an edge rusher week 10 from your waiver wire, a starting edge rusher who is going to be thrust into a role that he didn't already have, I think that's important. Jones was leading the Titans in edge rushing snaps. So he was clearly, he's a durable guy. He's going to be on the field most every play. I don't know what week one's going to be like, but I can't imagine edge rushers, it's that big of a difference going to another team. I mean, your focal point is get to the quarterback, okay?
Yeah.
Whatever move you got to use, fine. Whatever gap you got to go through, fine. So I feel like he's going to be somebody that we can immediately plug into lineups. Do you think it's off?
No, I think you're absolutely right. The only thing I don't like is that they're on the road the next 2 games. Yeah. But you get Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy, who is still figuring out this quarterback position. Then you get the Cleveland Browns, whose offensive line has been dreadful. You have a quarterback in Dylan Gabriel who won't force the ball down the field. That could lead for some quick releases, so he'll have to get after it quick. Then you get the Jets. Then you get the Bengals and their historically bad offensive line. You get the Steelers, who are kind of mediocre, and then you get the Bengals again. Honestly, his end-of-season schedule is set up. Wow. You mentioned 4.5 sacks in the last 4 weeks. His end-of-season schedule is set up for him to add another 5 to 6 sacks in the next 5 to 6 weeks. So,
absolutely. And anytime you can get a double-digit edge rusher guy, it's going to help you out. It's going to help you out. You just hope you don't get all 5 in one game or 10 in one game.
Yeah.
All right, moving up to the next guy, a guy that I've loved for a long time, but I've had to eat crow for so many years. I finally feel like I'm going to have an opportunity to be right. Jalen Phillips.
Yeah.
He is no longer a Dolphin. He has gotten out of the Miami mortuary. He is now in Philadelphia, which on one hand scares me, on one hand makes me feel good. The Philly is deep. There's no other way to put it. They got 11 to 15 guys on that defense that are legitimate starters on most teams in the NFL. I mean, that is not an exaggeration. Specifically in that front 7, they are absolutely loaded with first-round picks and players that have a proven track record. They clearly wanted some help on the edge, though. There were some rumblings that Brandon Graham was going to come back. There was, or I think he did come back. Actually, he did sign.
You stole my talking point. Is they were relying on a retired Brandon Graham.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So I'm glad we're already locked in on this. I feel the same way. But obviously, Graham has either lost a step or isn't the guy that they thought he was going to be. Maybe he was more of a veteran presence. I don't know what they're doing in Philly. I don't think Philly knows what they're doing in Philly. But I do know that Jalen Phillips looks like he was sculpted by Michelangelo. The guy is an Adonis. The guy is a physical freak. And if you look at him, if you were just to look at him, you're like, okay, this is a strong human being. Most edge rushers are, right? The thing about Phillips is he cannot stay on the field. If he can stay on the field, when he has stayed on the field, he has been a very productive player for Miami. And Miami didn't exactly have, I mean, they have Bradley Chubb, but even before Bradley Chubb, it was just kind of Jalen Phillips. He was just kind of on his own. He was still producing. I think that Jalen Phillips is going to be great in Philly. I think he's going to have he's going to have good value. I am worried the snap counts are not going to be there, and he is going to be relied upon to produce in those snap counts. But I also think because of the reduced snap counts, he will stay healthy more often. And I think that is going to be the best case scenario for him. What do you feel about Jalen Phillips?
Oh, you hit it on the head. There were obviously issues. Jalen Phillips' sack numbers went down every single year since his 8.5 rookie year. But again, two things there. Injuries were obviously an issue, but also Miami didn't really have a lot of threats opposite him. They've started to add some talent in the last few years, but it was easy to double team Jalen Phillips. And when he was on the field, you kind of knew he was pass rushing. That's not going to change in Philadelphia when he's on the field around him. You're not going to be able to throw many double teams Jalen Phillips' way, certainly not with the defensive tackles that Philly's putting out there. With Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, you cannot double team Jalen Phillips. And I think this works out really well for him. Plus, one underrated part of this, Philadelphia is going to put him in a lot more favorable game scripts and game environments. There's going to be a lot more time where he just gets to pin his ear back and get after the quarterback. You mentioned, rotational front seven, but that's what I was going to go with. Is the one thing is Jalen Phillips is the only one of this front seven who does what he does. Everybody else, Nakobe Dean, Zach Debon, are traditional linebackers. Phillips is a pass rusher. And my last point that I planned on making is Philly was so desperate, 16 sacks on the season for a team that broke the team sack record 2 seasons ago. Nice. They went out and asked Brandon Graham to come back out of retirement so they could try to figure something out. Clearly that experiment had lasted 10 days. And with Jalen Phillips coming in there, again, you're absolutely right. The snap counts are not going to be there. This is a player where when you look at that defensive snap number, it's going to be in the low 50s sometimes. But the fact of the matter is he should be playing meaningful downs, and meaningful downs for Philadelphia are a lot more important than meaningful downs for the Miami Dolphins.
Absolutely. One more. This one's a little bit bittersweet as a Bengals fan. Dallas has picked up Mr. Logan Wilson for the low price of a 7th-round pick. One of the best Bengals linebackers of all time.
That threw me off. How cheap.
You know what? It's crazy. The Bengals front office is finally making moves, and I can't say that it's made me any happier as a fan. But Logan Wilson is one of those players that got benched a couple of weeks back. So there is a small opportunity that there was a manager who was burned, who was jaded, that may have dropped Logan Wilson. He's immediately you got to pick up. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play inside linebacker for Dallas, and we have seen Dallas inside linebackers get heavy tackle numbers. Logan Wilson, to his credit, has been a heavy tackle volume player. He's been a pretty good linebacker over the last 2 to 4 years. I think Dallas is trying to plug the hole that Overshone left with his injury. I think that Marvion Overshone is really that dude. I think he had a devastating injury as a young player, but he will be back. So I think that as far as the league-winning potential of Logan Wilson will be temporary, but I do think it'll be fast, it'll be effective, and he needs to be a player that you have and start week to week.
This is a guy who 4 consecutive seasons of 100-plus tackles. Cincinnati made some decisions this year. They wanted to get their younger guys more involved, and it didn't play out well for Logan Wilson. The other aspect of this trade, and I don't know if we were going to touch on it next, but Quinnen Williams coming there as well. Now you're anchoring this defensive line, giving Wilson room to roam in the middle of the field. That's exactly what he had in Cincinnati. They had good defensive tackles when he was putting up those 100 tackle seasons. And then you have the fact that Dallas's offense scores quickly. It's going to keep that defense on the field, and that's all good news when it comes to a high tackle linebacker. If your league favors tackles, you are absolutely right. Logan Wilson, more than likely #1 waiver priority this week if he was dropped out of frustration.
Yeah, I was just doing my best Jerry Jones impression, man. I was telling you the big, most exciting trade was going to happen immediately, and it's going to be Logan Wilson for a 7th-round pick. No, of course it's not going to be, man. It's going to be Quinnen Williams. That is a massive move, man. That is as big as you can get as far as interior defensive lineman. I would argue that Quinnen Williams right now is 1A, 1B interior defensive lineman as far as the best in the NFL. Dallas already picked up Kenny Clark from that trade. So they moved Mazi Smith, who also went to the Jets in that deal. I think Mazi Smith's got an opportunity, but he's not Quinnen Williams. He's not going to be worth a segment on this show. But at the same time, Dallas is 100% taking all of the feedback. Believe it or not, Jerry Jones, the king of snake oil, seems to be listening to what people are saying about how he has kind of been the detriment of this Dallas trajectory at times. He's been very candid about it, which I think is awesome. But we're also seeing action with those words for the first time in quite a while with Dallas. I don't think he's going to plug up the holes that Dallas has on that defense. I think that there's a larger problem going on there, but I do think this is a step in the right direction.
It almost has to be. You obviously were Dallas's problems, unfortunately, were two layers. It was, run defense and pass defense. And the next issue you have is you don't have a really solid secondary with just kind of everyone hurt right now. They have Josh Butler, who is eligible to come off of the PUP. He played well in games last year. It'll be interesting to see if he can get back there and kind of like shore up this back end. Hopefully they get Trevon Diggs back. But this does do a lot of things. Maybe you start to see an increased pass rush out of Dallas because now the center of that defensive line, as you mentioned, very, very solid. And you got to the whole middle of the field is looking good with what they've added recently. You just need to start seeing some pass rush so that those corners don't have to guard for so long.
Yep. And I do think that this could bump those edge rushers, exactly like you said. I think Ezraku is a good example of this. He's a rookie. He's not doing awful. He's not breaking the bank by any means, but I do think that because you have to show so much attention to those guys in the interior that now you're going to have more opportunities for one-on-one. And you know what? When you're one-on-one as a professional athlete, take chances. I think that people like that are players to roster.
Yeah.
Well, I lied to you on the show sheet.
Ezraku was, I think he fell to the second round, but he was projected as a first-round pick, and so there's some hope for him. So,
yeah. Well, I lied to you on the show sheet. I said you're going to give me two players. We're going to go with one.
Okay.
Because the NFL regular season, specifically fantasy football, I like it as a marathon. All right. And there's a lot of things you need in a marathon to be successful. You need shoes. You need to be hydrated. You need to be prepared. You can't just go out there and run it coming off the podcast and go run 26.2. So you have to be prepared for the long hauls here. In fantasy football, to prepare for the long hauls, not only do you have to draft well early, but you have to be able to find those diamonds, find those players that are going to help get you over the edge. Maybe you're at a plateau. Who's going to get me on that next hill? I want one player. You have to put your money on this player, an unlikely player, to take you over the top this season.
Oh, man, I have two that I really like because I did my research. I'm going to go – I know you're going to go linebacker, so I'm going to go defensive back. I like Kobe Bryant out of Seattle for a lot of the same reasons we were worried about that defense losing Ernest Jones. With Ernest Jones gone, Kobe Bryant was actually really good to start this season. He's recently hit a bit of a lull, but going into the bye week for Seattle, he was the DB 13 overall. Bad week 9, he's probably out of the bye week in a bad week 9. Not someone a lot of people are looking at on waivers. But with the loss of Ernest Johnson, with Brian as a safety, he does enough to stay involved in the passing game, but he is a tackle guy. And I think we're going to see a situation where there's going to be more missed tackles with Ernest Jones not playing, and Kobe Bryant could see those numbers increase. I think we're probably looking at a defensive back 10 and pushing up those stats as we're ending out the season. I think Kobe Bryant's a guy that I'd be looking to acquire right now, and it may be someone who's even out there on waivers.
Absolutely. I feel so happy that you said that. I was in a live draft with some industry folk. I'm not going to name any names, but I took Kobe Bryant in this draft because he's been a guy I've been planting my flag on since the preseason. And I got side eyes and I got some whispers at the table. And I was like, oh, are you trying to big time me, dude? Are you seeing what we got here? His name is Kobe Bryant, for crying out loud. He's got Mamba mentality. You're not going to go out there with the name Kobe Bryant and not give it your all. I love that pick. I'm going with Tatum Batoon. It feels like low-hanging fruit. Sometimes the fruit's still ripe. Batoon took over for Fred Warner, okay? He came from basically nowhere. I mean, he was a nothing burger guy coming into this season. Opportunity came knocking, and I think that he has taken this and run with it. As far as the actual NFL on-field product, maybe he's not the type of linebacker you want to anchor your defense, but as far as IDP goes, the dude is a tackle machine. He has been electric to fill in for Fred Warner. You have not missed a step if you were fortunate enough to get him off of waivers. He has been a plug-and-play guy since the get-go. I didn't believe it at first. I just didn't. If I don't know your name coming into the season, now you're going to start at inside linebacker. Of course, I will look at it, but I don't expect these type of numbers. I mean, we're basically seeing Fred Warner's stats on Batoon. And I think that's really all you can ask. I mean, if you could have polled me at the beginning of the year, who does Batoon play for? No, I don't think most people would have known what team he played for. Now I cannot stop talking about this guy. I can't stop thinking about this guy. It's some sort of a weird obsession in IDP with inside linebackers and heavy volume tackles. Batum has been the perfect player for this, and I think he's the right fit for. Never would I have expected to have my season hedge on whether Batum is playing, but hey, right now, week 10, especially with all the injuries and the weird bye week stuff, man, he has been a phenomenal player. What do you think of Batum?
Oh, absolutely. You're right. He and D Winters has really stepped up. D Winters was a late round draft pick for them a few years ago, and he stepped up. He was a little banged up coming into this last game, but you're right. It's not often that we see a player replace a legend. I don't think there's any other way to describe for everyone and step in and put in the same numbers. It shows that the role there in San Francisco is immensely valuable. And honestly, with the way that offense is playing, there's probably a lot of tackle numbers to come over the next few weeks because it has not been the best iteration of the San Francisco offense, which is leading to a lot more opportunities for their defense. Remember, we don't care why they're getting the numbers. We just care that they're getting the numbers. So.
Amen. There's never been truer words spoken on this podcast. Yeah. Well, in order to keep this podcast afloat, man, got to pay some bills. Here's a word from our friends at Fast Draft.
You asked, we delivered a full best ball tournament on Fast Draft, but we do it the Fast Draft way, and it's called the Rabbit, because of course it is. 20-second time clock, 15 rounds. These drafts, they take 20 minutes. That's it. So you get a lot of new people coming in and playing, get a lot of best ball bros playing, exploitable ADPs, no rake. It is the best EV in all of fantasy. You should just go to fastdraft.app, use code FAST. You get a $50 deposit match. These things are a blast, and it's the best use of your funds in all of fantasy.
All right. Make sure you use the promo code DEGEN, DEGEN, for a $50 deposit match at Fast Draft. All right. Everybody's favorite part of every fantasy football podcast, and I'm not sure if you've noticed, there's quite a bit. Waiver wires. This is an ugly week. We were talking about it a little bit off camera here. It was a gross week for waivers, but you got to have one or two guys you like this week, right?
I do. The first name is going to sound like, of course, but I promise you he's out there in more leagues than you think he is, and that's Quincy Williams for the Jets, one of the few guys who didn't get traded away. He came off the IR, and I think people who didn't have IR spots or didn't want to use IR spots on defensive players left him out there. I was shocked. I play in a league over on Yahoo. Quincy Williams was out there. He's only rostered in 5% of Yahoo IDP leagues or something like that. He's out there a ton. This was a player who was excellent in 2024, but obviously he's battled injuries this year. But then you take what's going on. You lost Quinnen Williams in a way that may hurt Quincy, but with Quinnen gone, that's players who are going to get past the front four and into the front seven. He was really good in his first game back, and I expect that to continue for the rest of the season. He may not be exactly the happiest player in town right now because all of his friends are gone, but I think it could lead to some fantasy success. And another one is a guy who you've maybe not heard of, but he's really stepped up recently. And I'm going back to the defensive backfield. Jeremy Reeves for the Washington Commanders. He's really come on as of late. If you look at just his since week 4 numbers, he is a top 15 defensive back. The offense is not getting better. Jaden Daniels likely to miss some time. It's still going to be Marcus Mariota. They can't put together a running game. That's going to keep the defense on the field. And Reeves has taken advantage as a player who he's stuck around with Washington for a very long time. He was a practice squad guy for a little bit. He's really fought his way into this start. He's taking advantage of the large snap count he's playing right now.
Love them both. I see Reeves all the time when I'm scouring the waiver wire, and I just have never had the heart to press that add button, but you know what? You're a smart guy. I don't know why I wouldn't trust you, Ryan. I went with 2. One of them I'm not the most pumped about. I almost didn't talk about him and almost just went 1, but for the sake of transparency here, safety Isaiah Pola-Mao. I don't really feel 100% confident in this, mostly because defensive backs as a whole are a bit, if you don't know them, if you don't see them popping off the screen, there's a tendency to disappear. Pola-Mao has that tendency, but he's been relatively productive. Defensive back is a dime a dozen. The reason I went with him is because traditionally in that Raiders scheme, we have seen defensive backs perform at a high level. I mean, even plug and play guys, which they've had quite a bit of over the last 2 to 3 years, have been productive fantasy assets. So as a defensive back, I think Isaiah Pola-Mao is a really good throw-in guy. But one that I'm really, really pumped about, Akeem Davis-Gaither, the linebacker for the Cardinals. He's playing the second most snaps at linebacker behind only Mac Wilson, and Wilson's been really good this year. But Gaither's had a quiet, good season. Arizona does not have a multitude of defensive players that people would know. Okay, so then let's get into the IDP space. There is a bit more, but I would even argue, as an IDP fan, I'm not trying to find an Arizona Cardinals player to get on my team. But Akeem Davis-Gaither almost assuredly is going to be on your waivers. It's linebacker. It's week 10. We're starting to make the playoff push here in fantasy, believe it or not. It is November. So you have to have depth. It's almost like getting those injury away running backs or running backs that, you're just kind of waiting for that opportunity. That's how I view linebackers. And I think Akeem Davis-Gaither fits that mold perfectly, where if you have to start him, he's not going to put a goose egg up. And that's ultimately the goal that I have at all positions on IDP. But at the same time, you're seeing that double-digit point performances regularly with him, even in the limited snaps that he gets. And limited's like 75%, okay? It's not like in the low 40s, but it's not as much as Mac Wilson, so you're not going to hear his name called that often, or maybe even see his name on the stat sheet as much as you would like to. I think pull him out. It's a risk. I think Gaither is a hold for the rest of the season, and even potentially have some dynasty value if you were into that sort of space. I know that you're in all kinds of spaces. You were in all kinds of fantasy stuff. You are a very, very well football educated man. I'm sure probably a regularly educated man as well. But as far as the football space, I can verify that PhD, brother. What do you do in the fantasy football space, Ryan?
Yeah, so with Club Fantasy, I do a little bit of everything. I was going to say I edit most of the articles, but I'm basically the only one who writes for the website right now. So I put out a waiver article. I really got my start in this industry, luckily enough, way back in the day with the fantasy footballers, talking about streaming defense, like team defense. And so streaming quarterbacks, tight ends, and defense has always been a weird passion of mine. So I put out an article every week of players who are available in 50% of leagues that you can go out and stream at those three positions. So a little bit of everything, lots of podcasting over with Club Fantasy. And then with football guys, quite a little bit of everything. DFS rankings. I contribute to Dynasty articles. I contribute to roundtables. I am even a member of the customer service team. So if you have a error going on with your football guys app, you are probably getting emails from me. So
I will say I got to dabble in the customer service part of football guys last year. You were a gem to work with on Sunday morning. So I just want to make sure that those behind the scenes, Ryan is just as good of a dude as he is on camera here. And I was going to ask you next what your roles and responsibilities are in football guys, but I think we could sum it up in one word, and that is you are truly a football guy. You do it all. Absolutely. You do every part of this game, man. So I do got to ask, though, you start with fantasy footballers. You're at Club Fantasy now, basically doing all of it there. You're doing a little bit of everything at football guys. But all of this stems from fantasy football. There has to be a passion there. What got you into fantasy?
So I grew up in a town. We're going to talk about this next. Very into football.
Yes,
I'll save that for the final question. Very into football, but my local newspaper, this is going to be so weird. My local newspaper, this is the mid 90s. I am in 5th grade. Put out what was essentially a precursor to DFS. It was a grouping of players. And they were like, pick one from this group, one from this group, one from this group, build the best lineup, win a gift card to a local restaurant. I won my very first try at it. I had to do everything in my mom's name because 10-year-olds aren't allowed to do things like that. And I was hooked from that moment. And I always joke, if you're watching, you see the gray beard. I've been doing fantasy football since before the internet, but when Yahoo Public Leagues became a thing, I was in. I was already a degenerate that was in way too many leagues. And we started my home league in 2004. 21 years later, it's still going strong. So I've been doing this for 2 decades, and it comes from where I was raised, Northeast Ohio, Cleveland Browns. Like we're born and bred to love football. I'm not a big guy. I was never made to play football, but I was really good at math. So fantasy football was right up my alley.
Hey, you know what? I do think you were born in the perfect body to podcast, brother, because you are good at it. And I am going to go. So you are Northeast Ohio. I grew up in a little town called Cincinnati in the Southwest, baby. The 513. So I'm like immediately not a fan of yours because you're in that Cleveland area. You know how that goes up there. But I do. For all of the millions of viewers that are going to watch this, why is small town Ohio the best place in the world to grow up and live?
I just think there's a little bit of everything in small town Ohio. You have the main street, but then you have areas you skirt off to and do dumb stuff without a million eyes on you. You get all 4 seasons, and football is religion. And so if you're watching this, you understand. We do have a connection, Matt, that you don't even realize. There are 2 Paul Brown stadiums in the state of Ohio, one in Cincinnati and the other in Massillon, Ohio, where I was born and raised. Paul Brown, the legendary head coach of the Bengals, the Browns, started off in Massillon, Ohio as a high school football coach. So, yeah.
I could go on for days about Ohio. Shout out to Batavia. That is where I was born and raised, brother. So I feel it, and I'm 100% with you, man. You got those one stoplight towns, but guess what? Everybody in that town loves football, especially in that northern part. I will say it is way more football up there. Once you hit that Columbus North area in Ohio, I mean, it is football country, and it can almost get a little bit tense up there with their football love. And
I agree. As now that I'm out from it, I'm like, okay, we all need to calm down a little bit. But growing up, I was so prideful of it. We lived in a town of 25,000. Our stadium held 10,000 people. Like, it's ridiculous.
Everybody in the town, baby, showing up for standing room only.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you, man. I really appreciate you spending the time this evening going over some of the hot trade deadline stuff. We're big fans of pretty much every moves we made here, but Jalen Phillips going to the Eagles, I really love that. Obviously, Quinnen Williams going to the Cowboys is probably the biggest, splashiest move, and Jerry Jones, to his credit, said he was making a big deal. I think that counts as one. And then Sauce, yes, not an IDP move, but that's a big defense move, and that does change kind of how you have to attack the Indianapolis Colts. So everybody, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the IDP or the Degens IDP Blitz. I'm Matt Monty. This was Ryan Weiss. We will see you guys next week.